Brandy. Jasmine Sullivan.
You going heavy. Go heavy. Go heavy. Go heavy.
Her.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Bay Area. Go ahead.
Aaliyah.
Yes.
Beyonce.
R&B. Brandy.
Janet, Brandy.
Not bad.
Amazing.
Stevie Wonder, Prince, Joe, Brandy, and Luther.
I mean, Brandy, gotta be Brandy. I gotta put her in my top 5.
Brandy.
That was worth the wait.
That's where I landed on.
Teddy Pendergrass
Wow.
and Brandy. Yeah.
I'm going Brandy, but not for typical. Like, I feel like when people talk about how great of a vocalist Brandy is, it's very surface, and they don't really understand.
Okay, make them understand, man. Come on, make them understand.
Brian McKnight.
You're gonna pick off everybody that can play the piano.
Joe.
I like his style.
Joe.
Yeah. Brandy.
Bow. Yeah.
Boys to Men. Yeah.
Bang.
Brandy. Yeah. I mean, you have to.
Tank, Usher,
Yes.
Brandy,
Yeah.
Tevin Campbell,
Yeah. Hell yeah.
and Sam Cooke.
Brandy.
Brandy.
That Full Moon album changed my life.
And then number one for me, arguably is Brandy.
Ooh. Oh, you said number one too. Because we didn't tell you to
You
do.
didn't do no order.
We didn't tell you order.
It wasn't no order, but number
I
one,
listened
number
to
one
that
is
Brandy album.
I would take
That album.
if I was locked on a desert, it would
Yeah.
be Full Moon for me.
Yeah.
Usher,
Shit. Okay. Let's get there.
Beyonce,
Let's get there.
Luther Vandross.
Why not?
Brandy.
Huh?
Brandy.
Hey, your list is cold.
Yeah,
I gotta
it's
give
a
it to
cold ass list.
Stevie Johnny.
Because she raised a whole generation of singers.
Brandy Norwood is one of the most influential voices of her generation. That's not an opinion, it's a fact. You can hear it in the way your favorite artists sing. But for some reason, the word most often attached to her name is underrated. And we need to talk about that. Because Brandy wasn't just talented, she was trailblazing vocally, sonically, and stylistically. So why didn't she get the mainstream flowers in real time? This is Bridge Theory, and today we're unpacking the legacy of Brandy and why she's not underrated. She's just misunderstood.
I feel like every singer knows that song for some reason. Looking up,
So good.
That inspired me to do more acapella stuff.
Finally found the missing part of me. I can't explain this feeling.
Amazing song.
I'm running up, going in circles, and I ain't even going nowhere.
Nowhere.
Middle of nowhere.
Woo! Second verse, she goes, where?
Yeah.
Something missing. I was like, what? Who does that?
It's so good.
But anyways,
yeah.
amazing.
They're saying Brandy's living legend.
Literally. And she doesn't even know it. She doesn't even know she's a legend.
Every so often, I'll see a comment online saying something wild like Brandy can't really sing, or why do people call her the vocal Bible? And it always reminds me, people still think singing is just about range, about belting, about who can hold the longest note or scream the loudest in the bridge. But that's not what makes a great vocalist. Brandy's gift is precision, its tone, its control, its intentions. She doesn't waste notes. She doesn't just run because she can. She runs when the emotion asks for it. She stacks harmonies that sound like chords on a piano. She bends tone like it's clay, creating entire moods inside a measure. Brandy sings like she's building something, not just performing, but constructing emotion. That's why producers love her. That's why artists study her. That's why vocal coaches break down her phrasing the way people analyze jazz solos. The vocal Bible doesn't mean she sings the loudest. It means she sings with the most discipline, the most depth, the most design. She's not giving you vocal acrobatics, she's giving you vocal architecture. So the next time someone tries to question why she's earned that title, Just ask them to listen again, because once you hear it, you can't unhear how technical and textured that voice really is. Let's go back to the beginning. Brandy's debut album dropped in 1994. She was just 15. She was just 15, and yet that voice already had layers. There was texture, warmth, a softness that carried power without needing volume. You could hear the influence immediately. Whitney Houston, not just in tone, but in the cleanliness of her delivery, the discipline, the way she respected melody. But Brandy wasn't copying Whitney. She was channeling her with a younger spirit, with a deeper, duskier tone, with a softness that didn't sound unsure. It sounded intentional. And still, the industry didn't fully catch on. Yes, the debut was successful. Yes, she gave us I Wanna Be Down, Baby, Brokenhearted, but the press didn't hear the vocal promise yet. They called her cute, marketable, a teen star. They didn't realize they were witnessing the start of a vocal technician in the making. Brandy wasn't just another young girl with a hit. She was studying tone, crafting harmonies in her head, building a voice that would become instantly recognizable within seconds. And the thing is, that debut album aged better than most people expected. It still holds up today. Because even at 15, Brandy was singing with control beyond her years. She wasn't just singing like a kid with talent. She was singing like someone who already understood restraint. That's not cute, that's rare. And the industry would spend the next decade playing catch-up, trying to categorize her while she was quietly perfecting a sound that would become a standard. Around the same time Brandy was carving out a name for herself in music, she became a full-on TV star. Moesha wasn't just a sitcom, it was a cultural moment. One of the first shows centered on a young, stylish, middle-class black girl navigating life, family, and friendships. It gave Brandy visibility like no other R&B girl her age. It made her America's sweetheart. Braids, denim, journals, morals. But here's the thing. Being Moesha also made it harder for people to take Brandy the artist seriously. She was seen as safe, wholesome, the girl next door. And when she tried to step out of that image, whether through her music, her fashion, or her sound, she didn't get the same grace other artists got to evolve. She was expected to stay in a lane she had outgrown. But when she came back with Never Say Never, she didn't ask for permission. She made the shift on her own.
I've had a lot of input with my whole project this time because I am 19 and I do know what I want to hear and I know what I want to see being young and, being hip to what's going on in the 90s. So I'm going to have a lot of input. I might not have a lot of say-so, but I'm going to definitely have my opinions,
In 1998, Brandy returned with Never Say Never. And this wasn't just a second album, this was a declaration. Gone was the soft-spoken teen navigating the industry. This was Brandy stepping into vocal control, emotional weight, and a sound that felt intentional from top to bottom. The entire project was shaped with Rodney Darkchild Jerkins, who helped her create something sleek, dark, and musically precise, years ahead of his time. But Brandy wasn't just following her producer's lead. She was helping define what modern R&B would sound like going forward. Let's break it down. Angel in Disguise, the opener. The intro kicks off with Joe offering his contribution, his background vocals coming soft, almost ghost-like. He's not there to duet, he's there to haunt the moment. It's intimate but distant, romantic but tense. There's no traditional chorus, no big build, just smooth. This wasn't typical for R&B in the late 90s. It was cinematic, it was experimental, and it quietly set the tone for where the genre would go. Not with big vocal moments, but with layered atmosphere. The Boy Is Mine, not just a hit, a cultural reset. Two black girls co-leading a track not as rivals in real life, but in narrative. It gave Brandy mainstream crossover, but also highlighted her ability to hold her own beside anyone. Almost Doesn't Count, a masterclass in restraint. Brandy sings like someone who knows that less is more, letting the pain live in the silence between phrases. Have You Ever? Here's where the critics had to shut up. A piano ballad where her tone cuts clear and soft, but never weak. She carried it not with volume, but with intentional phrasing. Even tracks like Happy and Put That on Everything showed just how comfortable she was starting to sound in her lower register. The tone was maturing, the control was sharpening. This album didn't just prove she could sing, it proved she could shape a sound. She was no longer singing over beats, she was leading them, sculpting them. Never Say Never sold over 16 million copies worldwide. It won her awards, it solidified her presence in the global market, but most importantly, it marked the moment the world stopped calling her the girl from Moesha and started calling her a real artist. And the truth is, Never Say Never was the beginning of a sonic shift in R&B, a cleaner, more melodic, emotionally calculated approach, something that Brandy helped build before most people even realized the shift was happening. As Never Say Never elevated Brandy into superstardom, she wasn't the only one shifting R&B at the time. Artists like Aaliyah and Monica were also helping define the sound of the late 90s. All three of them were young, black, stylish, and vocally gifted, but each was allowed a different kind of freedom. Monica was positioned as raw, streetwise, and grounded. She came into the game with that Atlanta soul grit. She was allowed to be fiery, emotional, real, and people loved her for it. Aaliyah was mysterious. She wasn't just an R&B singer, she was cool, sleek, magnetic, and the industry let her lean into that mystique. Her image was curated, yes, but it wasn't suffocating. But Brandy was boxed in. She was marketed as the safe girl, the responsible one, the role model. She was America's black sweetheart, and with that came pressure. There was no space to act out, to fall apart in public, to explore mess without backlash.
Brandy's so cool. Now Brandy's a doll. Sparkle pants. Style and skirt. Cool braids. Brandy doll comes with 2 outfits, stand, and pretend microphone. You can make her dance.
Brandy once said herself, "People thought I was so perfect and I never wanted that. I just wanted to be me, but I had to keep a certain image and that gets heavy." She also gave credit to artists like Rihanna and Doja Cat, saying, "I love that artists today get to take risks. I couldn't do that. I wanted to, but I wasn't allowed." And a big part of that image control, her mother.
Frightening tailspin.
I felt like everybody needed a piece of me, but I was willing to give because I wanted it too. This was my dream. This is what I, worked for.
Her mother, Sonia Norwood, managed Brandy's career from the beginning and was labeled by the tabloids as domineering for controlling Brandy's money and dictating her love life. So is she a pushy stage mom?
Oh, no, even though I've been called that early on in my career, but no, that was
pushy.
I'm a pushy stage mother.
Even their playful banter reveals the tension in this complicated mother-daughter relationship.
My mom so wants to be a star, it's ridiculous.
Oh, my God.
She so wants to be a star.
You need to take that back.
Mom, you know you want to be a star. Come on.
Sonjay Norwood was her manager, her protector, her gatekeeper. She was making decisions behind the scenes, sometimes smart, sometimes stifling. She kept Brandy focused, booked, on brand. But let's be real, that control also came with a cost. A cost in creativity, a cost in public perception, a cost in how Brandy was able to express herself and just be a teenager. And let me clarify, this isn't a bash Sonya Norwood section. We also have to thank Sonya Norwood too, because this industry, it's wicked, and black girls don't always survive it with their minds intact. Sonya fought for her daughter's survival. She protected her brand in an era where one misstep could mean cancellation before social media even existed. So it's complicated but real. And that's why when we talk about Brandy's career, we're not just talking about music, we're talking about image, control, respectability, and the long-term cost of being branded too early, too tightly for too long. In 2002, Brandy released Full Moon, and whether the world realized it or not, she quietly shifted the sound of modern R&B. This wasn't just another album, it was a vocal innovation lab, a masterclass in tone, restraint, and arrangement, wrapped in glossy production that sounded like the future. Produced largely by Rodney Darkchild Jerkins, Full Moon was the sonic result of two perfectionists refining every detail. And one of the biggest creative shadows hanging over the project, the GOAT himself, Michael Jackson. Brandy has called Michael her greatest vocal influence, someone she studied deeply, not just for his tone, but for his phrasing, his emotion, his precision. And Rodney Jerkins had just come off producing Michael's 2001 album Invincible, so that energy carried over.
I came in and she was already like maybe 3 or 4 songs in, and I made a joke. I was like, "Oh, so that was the warm up. Now you ready for the real game now?" And they laughed, and then we ended up starting out. I think we started the project in my studio in New Jersey. Now remember, I was working with Michael Jackson, so it was kind of simultaneously. So there was a lot of Sonics things and things in Full Moon that people say, "Yo, that album sounds crazy different." Well, I was working with Michael.
In many ways, Full Moon sounds like the spiritual sister to Invincible. Both albums feature futuristic syncopated production, both center vocal layering and micro-emotional phrasing over big belting moments. Both play with tension, silence, and digital clarity. You can hear it on All In Me, where Brandy glides over a groove that could have easily sat beside Invincible's Butterflies, the whispery ad-libs, the staccato harmonies, the almost mechanical precision of how her voice builds space into the track. That's not coincidence, that's design. Rodney Jerkins later said, Brandy doesn't just sing a song, she constructs it. She hears harmonies most people would never think to try. Working with her is like working with another producer.
Or when you're crafting a record as a producer, right? So working with Brandy let me know her voice is an instrument.
Yeah.
Like literally, like if I could play a string line on a keyboard, it would be her voice.
Yeah, she could chase whatever you played too, like
whatever.
Like exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I had to learn, like what I learned when working with Brandy was how important when I'm panning my vocals, how important that is to in the balancing of. And how important it all has to fit within the scope of the production.
Yeah.
And I learned that from working with Brandy, right? I was doing records before Brandy, but when I worked with Brandy, that's when I learned how important those vocals really are. And what it means to have layers of vocals that when you're doing backgrounds and your layers are breathy, airy, versus hard and full and warm, right? And putting those two worlds together to make that sound you want.
So because you started out when it was just mixing by ear, producing by ear, and now it's like visual. Like you can kind of see waveforms and see like the EQ and stuff.
Correct.
But I would imagine knowing how to like you probably have this like highly attuned sense of sound that like I would imagine like those Brandy sessions sharpened it like crazy.
100%, yeah, definitely like made me every step made me better working with Brandy on not just Never Say Never, even Full Moon, because that was another project that was the second time we worked together, and it was like you're elevating, right? You're elevating as a producer, she's elevating as an artist, and that's why you get such a great product.
Yep. I've been walking around singing Full Moon all day. Just because I knew I was going to sit with you. That's just like one of the signature songs.
She was taking Michael's vocal discipline and applying it in a more digital, fluid way, not imitating him but carrying the technique forward. Full Moon. The title track is smooth, mid-tempo, and hypnotic, but it's not just a catchy groove. It's Brandy's voice doing the heavy lifting. Mike City built a track that was sparse by early 2000 standards. Warm synths, a bass line that creeps rather than thumps, and drums that don't compete with her vocal. They float underneath. And over that, Brandy's vocals aren't just melody, they're landscape. She sings the lead with precision. Controlled, breezy, but never shallow. But it's the harmonies that make it timeless. Like she's having a conversation with herself, stacked, layered, and alive. Brandy didn't need to belt to create drama. She let the beat breathe, let the harmonies move, let the texture do the talking. Mike City gave her the perfect canvas, but it was Brandy who turned it into a universe. When You Touch Me, she builds vocal tension the same way Michael did on ballads like Heaven Can Wait, with phrase and breath in that moment where the note almost cracks from holding so much feeling. But critics didn't get it. They were looking for singles, not structure. They didn't realize she was rethinking the function of the R&B vocal. And so Brandy got another platinum album, but it didn't receive the same acclaim as Never Say Never. That came later. When artists like Jasmine Sullivan, her, Victoria Monet, Ariana Grande, JoJo, and Jill Scott started citing it as their holy grail, people began to revisit.
So as we are all fans of yours, I think we all know how big of a fan of Brandy you are.
Yes, yes, yes. I feel like when you're talking about like people that have added to the genre, when you think about R&B music and its growth in the 90s, her and Dark Child, even if we think about Destiny's Child as well, Dark Child, Rodney Jerkins, like he was incredible in taking what is obviously the root of R&B, which is a lot of church, sound. I mean, he was a prodigy in a church, took that, updated it with some of these nowadays sounds, but the music is still timeless. You can do that music that was done, we think about Destiny's Child or Brandy, that is definitely specific to the era, but it's still timeless. Yes. So you can do current and still have it backed by what's just, that grounded sound that that's going to always live the test of time. So when I think about Brandy, her arrangements, so many people these days do not realize that those people weren't doing vocal arrangements like that. No. She was the standard, and I think it's a beautiful thing when people, when it becomes a standard so much that people forget, but people do need to remember, and we always need to know like that she was one of those people that really came and allowed for R&B to evolve instead of people just trying to throw it away.
The album became a Bible for vocalists, a blueprint for producers, a reference point for anyone trying to do more than just hit notes. This was Brandy unfiltered, not in her personal life because the world still wasn't ready for that, but in her sound. 2 years after Full Moon, Brandy returned with Aphrodisiac, an album that should have redefined her again. She didn't try to play catch-up, she went deeper, she went darker, she went riskier, because the next chapter in her story wasn't about playing it safe, it was about pushing the genre itself. In episode 2 of the Mislabeling of Brandy, we'll be discussing Aphrodisiac, the album where Brandy stopped holding back and started telling her truth.
Yes, you